What's going on, everybody, over at ThunderStruckGaming? This is Rob, and I wanted to thank Thunder for posting this video to his ThunderStruckGaming channel just because I think it's really cool. Take a great big deep breath. I think it's really cool that he's giving those of us in the community a chance to grow and to expand. I wish a lot of other commentators would do this, but of course they don't, so it's just the way it goes. This is actually one of my warm-up games, so be a little gentle with all your anti-FAMAS comments. I know that a lot of you guys hate the FAMAS, but I like to use the FAMAS to warm up with, just because the recoil is really ridiculous, the hipfire is terrible, and it can be kind of a pain in the ass to use, when you're first waking up in the morning. And so if you can kind of do well with this gun in the first game, then you're kind of set for the rest of the day. But what I wanted to talk about in this commentary, I don't really want to talk a lot about Black Ops. There we go. Black Ops 2 and, ideas on how YouTube ruined the Call of Duty community and all that kind of stuff. It seems like that gets a lot of coverage and people talk about that enough. What I wanted to talk about actually was the idea of social psychology. I know some of you don't know what this is, and some of you who may have misconceptions may think that it's extremely boring, but in actuality, it's a very interesting topic for discussion. Because people in groups, when you put people into groups, they become very interesting and they become very fascinating in terms of what they do and what they don't do. I mean, people as a whole are very interesting. The whole group mindset and different things like that. When one person does something, other people do it. For example, running a red light. If it's just that one red light in every city, because every city has it. Every city has that one red light that takes forever to turn green. And if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and there's no one there, somebody's going to run it. And if there's somebody behind you, they're going to run it too. It's just interesting. But in social psychology, they have this premise called group polarization. And this is actually that idea that, that Pacific Tomb was talking about in his video, Don't Be Sheep. One of the really interesting aspects is that in group polarization, the attributes are similar to groupthink. And you guys may have heard this concept before, groupthink, where people get together into groups and they end up forming a collective ideology. And they end up shedding their individual moral compasses and whatnot. Of course, this is exactly what took place in Nazi Germany and different things like that. But, to create an exact point in what happened in Nazi Germany, it's the idea of group polarization. If you put people in groups, not only will they develop a group ideology, the group ideology will more than likely deviate to the negative. It will deviate to the extreme. In that, if I were to tell you guys, if I were to put 10 of you guys into a group, or if I were to put 100 of you, okay, let's say, for example, that I took every single person that is every single subscriber, all 30-something thousand of you that are part of the ThunderStruckGaming channel, and I put you guys into a group, and I said, what do you guys think of the FAMAS? Now, a large majority of you would say, I don't like the FAMAS. Let's say, for example, that 60% of you say, I don't like the FAMAS. And then 30% of you say, I like the FAMAS. It's balanced after they patched it. It's got its problems, got its ups and downs, but it's a pretty good gun. And then 10 of you are undecided. What will happen is that all 100% of you will end up deviating towards hating the FAMAS. Just because people in groups, once they develop an ideology, will deviate towards hating something. And it's very intriguing how that takes place. Now, of course, the whole idea with Nazi Germany was a little more convoluted than that. It was a little more complex, and that also involved elements of obeying authority, legitimate figures of authority. And that's actually, the second thing that I want to talk about. When we're younger, when we're kids, and for a lot of you, I know a lot of you guys are preteens, approaching your teenage years, but when we're children, we're taught to obey legitimate figures in authority. Police officers, teachers, principals, different things like that. And we're taught that when you're driving and a police officer says, I need you to get out of your car, that you get out of your car. We're taught that when the teacher says, sit down, you sit down. And when the principal says, come to my office, you go to their office. These are things that we're taught. And subconsciously, we're taught this individual has a position of authority, a legitimately recognized position of authority that's recognized by society, not just me. I must follow what they say. And that's actually what took place in Nazi Germany. What ended up happening is, of course, you had Hitler, who was made chancellor, and then eventually elevated himself to dictator after more or less taking over Germany. And he started implementing policies, implementing ideologies. And the question, after World War II took place, after it ended, during the Nuremberg trials, when all these Nazi soldiers were saying, I was just following orders, I was just doing what I was told, the question became why. Because obviously it was believed that there's some legitimacy to this claim. There was some legitimacy to all these soldiers saying, I was just following orders, because they were all saying the same thing. And surely they didn't all just meet into a room, before the trials and say, let's all just say we were following orders and we'll get away with it and we'll be fine and we can all go home. They genuinely believed what they were saying. And so the question is, why were they just following orders? Why did they think that it was okay to shed their individual morality and adopt the morality that we can essentially attempt to wipe an entire culture off the face of the map? And what they found is this idea of following, people in positions of authority was heavily influencing their actions. And this guy, Stanley Milgram, actually performed this experiment in 1961 called the Stanley Milgram Shock Study, or obedience, depending on what source you look up. And what he did is he took 40 men and he brought them into a facility. And he said, took each of one of them into a room. And he said, on the other side of this room is a person whom you're going to be more or less asking questions to. We've performed these different studies and we found that the idea of pain, so to speak, more or less stimulates the learning process. And so he said, you're going to ask each of them a question. And each time they get a question wrong, you're going to give them an electric shock. Not only that, the electric shock is going to increase in voltage with each incorrect answer. And so what they found is that while these individuals, later on down the line, when the responses from the people that they were shocking were eliciting responses of pain and, begs for mercy and requests for them to stop, while they may have protested and said, look, we can't keep shocking these people, this person may be dead, in the end, they kept going. Simply because Stanley Milgram, as the administrator or the administrator of the experiment, told them, it's in the interest of this experiment that we continue. I mean, there was never a gun to their heads. They were never strapped down to the chair. They could have left at any point. And granted, a lot of them did. Something like 35% of them ended up leaving. But the remaining 65% continued to electrocute these people. I mean, these were good, hardworking people that had good moral compasses. They believed in the value of life, different things like that. And they were essentially killing a person because they were answering questions incorrectly. And it was very interesting. It was very intriguing, these studies. Now, of course, the person who was being shocked was part of the experiment. They didn't actually have electrodes hooked up to them. They weren't actually being electrocuted. They were part of Stanley Milgram's crew, and they were, fine with the whole process, but it was intriguing. And of course, they asked these individuals, why did you keep electrocuting this person? Why did you keep shocking them? And their answer was basically, you told me to. You told me we had to keep going. But the answers that they were giving them in a way where they were essentially making the case like, look, you forced me to do this. When in reality, they were never forced to do it. They were never made to do it. There was never a gun to their heads, and like I said, they were never strapped down. They willingly chose to continue because they felt compelled. They felt that they had to because a person in authority was telling them that it's in the interest of this experiment that you continue. So these are very interesting concepts. These are very interesting ideas. And I highly suggest that a lot of you guys, if you get a chance, go out and explore these different concepts. Look up the Philip Zimbardo prison study, different things like that, because it's very interesting in terms of how people act. But in any event, I hope I maintained your interest. I hope you guys didn't get tired of my commentary. So, again, I want to thank Thunder for giving me a chance to post this. I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys enjoyed everything. So, if you guys have ideas on ways that I can improve, let me know. And I'll be happy to take them under advisement and to apply them to my commentaries. So, yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Y'all have a good one. Peace.
Creep and crawl.